What's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition to the The Irish Fan Podcast, where I am not an Irish fan, I am the Irish fan. My name is Danny. How are you? Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to talk about the big, as my son likes to say. He likes to put a triple on everything big or sweet or cool. Win over Arkansas. Got a lot to talk about. Good, a little bit of bad, zero ugly this time. I know I usually don't do the good, the bad, and the ugly thing, but I usually get to it at some point in my podcast. So we're going to talk about that. Before I do, please like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the notification bell so that every time I put on a episode, you are there to be able to know, hey, look, the Irish Fan Podcast just put an episode on. I'm going to listen to this dude talk college football and Notre Dame football because he's good at it and I love it and everyone does too. So thank you so much for tuning in. Please help me out. That'd be great. Thank you. So, big win against Arkansas. We put the beat down on a team. I just want to say that this podcast, always 30,000 foot view. It's always going to be from the perspective of a fan. It's never going to be from an insider. I'm not that guy. I'm not someone from the press. That's not me. It's just as a fan viewing the team. We are mushrooms. We are kept in the dark. We are fed crap. So all we can do is watch what we see on Saturdays and a couple of practice clips of guys warming up. So that's the perspective that you're going to get. That's what I see. What I saw was a markedly improved football team. That is very, very good. That's a good thing. Let's talk about those good things. Let's start defensively because that's been obviously the most critical thing that I've been critical of this entire season so far, and just about everybody else who's within the sound of my voice. Everybody covering the Notre Dame football team, everyone on the Notre Dame football team, it's been all about the defense. So let's just kind of start there. We're critical in areas where we need to be critical, and we give credit where credit is due. They held the number 5 overall offense in the entire country, a quarterback who throws for over 330 yards a game, an offense that has just been an absolute juggernaut, even against good teams, even against they played Ole Miss, who just beat LSU last night. If you're paying attention. They scored points on that team. So they held that team to 13 points. And the only touchdown they scored was from an offensive lineman on the goal line. That's impressive by any stretch of the imagination. They really, really upped their game. Now, did Arkansas do a lot of things to kind of help Notre Dame defense out? Yes. There's some drop passes. There were some missed reads. There were untimely penalties, yes. But when you can hold a team like that like I said before, in my prediction podcast, I talked about how this Arkansas team has just enough talent to be able to get a good gauge of where this defense is headed and are they going to be headed in the right direction or the wrong direction without it also being an unwinnable game, like playing an unbelievable talented offense like 2020 Alabama. So they have talent. They do have talent. And it's, again, specifically on the offensive side of the ball. So our defense improved. They did. And you saw a little bit of changes from our defense. First of all, having Tate Johnson as the starter has markedly improved our secondary over Jalen Stroman. Our nickelback, Devonta Smith, was healthy and played. Well, I don't know how healthy he is because they don't talk about health unless they're out for the season for Notre Dame football. But he was playing. He played. So that's good as well. That helped. And you can see these guys they know where they're going a little bit more. They're not thinking about it so much. Whenever they have to trade off when a guy goes in motion, you can see that it's a simple trade off. They're not doing a whole bunch of checkdowns. So the defense has been dumbed down, if you will, quote unquote. It's gotten a little bit more, I think, vanilla, which has helped these guys fly around a little bit more and use their speed to their advantage. When you're not thinking about something and you're just reacting and you're going, it's a lot easier to make a play, and you saw that. I've got my thoughts on that. Here's the thing. Again, give credit where credit is due. Be critical in areas where you need to be critical. So I got to give them credit. They did improve. This is something. This was more akin to the defense that we're used to seeing. Just guys being in the right position. We should have had. Man, these guys need to do some jugs drills, man. I mean, I get them on. They need to catch a couple of these interceptions. I mean, I think Tay Johnson and a couple other guys had shots at interceptions and didn't get their hands around it. But again, that's nitpicky, and a lot of the criticisms that I'm going to have are nitpicky. When you beat down somebody 56-13, there's not a lot to talk about in the negative sense. Especially, I haven't watched any of the game. I watched some of the highlights, but I haven't watched actual game film. I haven't listened to anybody who has yet. So, my opinion on how good it actually was is just basically the view of the game. Now, again, that's enough. That's enough because we can do the same thing about the two losses and see how egregiously wide open the wide receivers were for both Texas A&M and Miami. And you saw less. Did it still happen against Arkansas? Yeah, there's a couple plays that I think they could have back that they wanted back, but it wasn't nearly as much as those other two teams. And you could make an argument that at least this Arkansas team is more productive than those two offenses. You could make that argument, at least, early on in the season. I'm talking about necessarily against Notre Dame, but this Arkansas defense this Arkansas offense was a more productive offense than the other two Texas A&M and Miami offenses were, and we limited those big chunk plays. The most important stat, obviously, we limited the touchdowns. They only had one touchdown. And that touchdown, again, was an offensive lineman, awesome. That's great. You keep all of their running backs, all their wide receivers, that 6'6", 235-pound tank of a quarterback out of the end zone. That is good defense. But it's still not great. It's still not great. And here's the thing, again, this is going to be nitpicky, and this is the limit of, I guess, the extent of my criticism goes. I heard Brian Driscoll on Irish Breakdown talk about how there wasn't much change by way of scheme. It was still the same scheme. It was still pretty zone coverage with a little bit less for the guys to think about. It wasn't as aggressive as we would like, and that you can see that on the field, and I totally agree with that. I pretty much said the same thing after the game. It was again, markedly better defense, but it still wasn't quite there, and I think the reason why is because they're not as aggressive as how they normally are. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because I just watched a video on YouTube, Chris Ash talking about Notre Dame's defensive philosophy, and he said a couple of things that I just disagree with. He talked about how the scheme, what he is bringing to the table, is the same stuff that Notre Dame has been used to for the last several years under Al Golden. He didn't say Al Golden's name, but he mentioned how it's the same stuff, and I'm not asking these guys to do much more, and we're talking about guys that need to execute the plays that I call, kind of pushing it down the line and saying these guys know how to do this. I'm not giving them rocket science here. They can do it. They just need to execute and get better at that. And I'm sorry. I have a problem with that. You might be listening to a guy who has a problem with Chris Ash the whole season. I don't know. I'm still really butthurt about these two losses. There's a lot of people trying, and I'm one of them. I'm trying to remain glass half full. For every game the rest of the season, we're going to be favored, and I think if we win out, we're good. We'll be 10-2, and I think we'll make the playoff. I don't think the whole hosting a playoff game, I think, is done, barring some kind of catastrophic amount of losses from the top 15 teams in the country, and everyone has two losses. And under that scenario, then yeah, I think we could get a home playoff game. But here's the thing. Here's my point. I'm not trying to be negative. This is about the most negative thing I'll say for the rest of this podcast. I'm so sick and tired of thinking that way. I can't even begin to tell you how many seasons I've gone down. Well, so and so loses, and that team loses, and well, if this team lost to this team, then we'll get what we want. If this happens or that happens, then Notre Dame will be okay. Like I just can't even begin to tell you how sick and tired I am of that. As a Notre Dame fan, watching this team since 1992, every season, every game. Almost, since 1992. I'm 42 years old, so 30 years of my life. Every single season, I'm so sick and tired of this. I'm so sick and tired of Notre Dame not being in their control of their own destiny. And it being by a bounce here and a missed field goal there and a wrong decision there and an interception here and a drop pass there. I'm just so sick and tired of it. And I want them to put it all together. I want to see a team, for once in my life, put everything together. Well, Danny, they made national championship runs in 2012, and last year, they just made a national championship run last year. Yeah. Both of those seasons had one thing in common. They were a strong quarterback away from winning a national championship. I love Riley Leonard, and by and large, a lot of what he did, I've said this 100 times, and I'll say it 100 times more, probably, a lot of what he did got us to a national championship. The problem is, a lot of what he did prevented us from winning the national championship. That's why I'm doing this podcast. That's what I want from Notre Dame, is to stop competing for national championships and start winning them. And with that mindset of, well, if this team loses here and that team loses there, guess what that's called? Losing football. You know why? Because you're not winning a national championship, and I want to win one. So I want them to get out of that mentality. I want Notre Dame fans to stop to get out of that mentality. I want Notre Dame fans to start putting pressure on administration, on coaches. That's great what you did against Arkansas, but what you did a couple weeks ago, that's not great, and it's not good enough. You got to start doing better. You have to start getting better. And that starts with putting together a full product on the field. A complement to the defense and the offense. An offense complementing a defense complementing an offense. You got to stop having years where your defense is really good and your offense just kind of does enough. And then years where your offense scores 40 points a game, but your defense gives up 35. Hello, 2005, 6, and 7 under Charlie Weiss. Do we remember those years? I do. Feels like yesterday. And I'm watching a football team that looks a lot like that. They didn't yesterday, though. They didn't yesterday. So I'll get away from the negative. Then I'm still kind of there. The game was awesome. It was just fun to watch, man. It was just a really fun game to watch. Again, the defense was flying around. They looked like they knew what they were doing. They didn't look lost. They still gave up some big plays, but I digress. They played really well. If they play like that the rest of the season, I'm good. It is a good complement to our offense. And I'm not saying, it's okay to give up 30 points a game because our offense is going to score 50. That's winning football, Danny? No, it's not. It's not. But I'll tell you what is winning football. Holding them to 17 to 20, 23 points a game. I can work with that, and I think the Notre Dame offense can work with that as well. And I think that's what you're going to see, or hopefully that's what you're going to see from this defense going forward, is a defense that's not going to be giving up 40 a game. Instead, they'll probably give up 3 touchdowns and a field goal a game. And against our worst opponents, less than that, so it'll bring the averages down. And again, glass half full, every single team we'll play the rest of the season is we're going to be favored. Especially the games, the last couple of games of the year. Syracuse doesn't look nearly as strong. Who knew Steve Angeli? I had a buddy text me this. Who knew Steve Angeli was carrying the Syracuse offense? But apparently he was. Who knows how they're going to play, weeks down the line, how they're going to coalesce. I have no idea. But those teams, Boston College, Syracuse, Stanford, and then of course Navy. You never want to say we got Navy in the bag. No, you never want to be that. You never want to be that fan, because we've seen that backfire plenty of times. But that is looking a lot more manageable. The next 3 games are absolutely critical. Absolutely critical. We'll be favored in every single one of them, and we should win every single one of them. However, you never want to put a rivalry game past you. You never want to overlook USC. Next week we got Boise State. We've never played them. That is a team we have no idea. I watched them play last night. They played Appalachia State, which is, who knows how good Boise State's going to be, because they lost to South Florida. They beat the pants off of Appalachia State. So I have no idea how good they are. I really don't. And I don't think a lot of people who cover college football know how good they are either. They've got a pretty solid quarterback. He's a Smurf. He's like 5'9". He's my height. That's, I don't want a quarterback with that height playing for me, but he can throw the ball really well. He's very mobile. He's smart. I think he's a senior, so he's got experience. I don't know his name, but I'll have a preview and a prediction episode of Boise State. But we got Boise State, NC State, and then USC, and then we get a bye week. We need to close these 3 games out strong. We need to play strong. Obviously across the board, but I think we're going to see that with our offense. If our defense just plays okay, they don't and get rid of bad football and just play okay, and our offense stays healthy. And to me, and here's the thing, to me, that's the only thing that can derail this offense at this point, at least with the opponents that we're going to play, is health. If we stay healthy, dude. Watch this offense score 40 a game at least. Watch. They're that good. This is one of the best offenses I have seen in my Notre Dame lifetime. Not because, and it's a full compliment. It's not because one position group over the other, although our running back room is just, I've never seen a running back room this good. I can say that with absolute certainty, that in my lifetime, I have never seen a running back room this deep, this healthy, and this talented. You could take Jadarian Price, put him on any Power 5 football team, and he's a Heisman Trophy contender, if not a Doak Walker contender. And he's on the same team with a guy who is right now in the driver's seat for the Heisman Trophy with Jeremiah Love. Those guys are in the same backfield. I mean, it's crazy. Like last game, Jadarian Price had 4 touchdowns. Yeah, Jadarian Price had 4 touchdowns last game. This game, Jeremiah Love has 4 touchdowns, 2 passing, 2 receiving. A Notre Dame a Notre Dame player has never done that before on a Notre Dame football team. That's never happened, where you've had multiple receiving and multiple rushing touchdowns in the same game. If they continue feeding the rock to these guys and they stay healthy, you're going to see an offense like you've never seen before at Notre Dame, and that really, really makes me excited. And what I said just a couple minutes ago about we had a great athlete in Riley Leonard playing quarterback this year, and for the first time probably since Jimmy Clausen. Yeah, I'm not throwing Ian Book necessarily in there, and I'm not including Malik Zaire. I'm not including Deshaun Kaiser. I'm not including some of the other quarterbacks for Notre Dame that were under Brian Kelly, because we didn't really get to see a lot of those guys, and they were derailed by Brian Kelly or Brian Van Gorder. However, I think this is the best quarterback actually playing quarterback for Notre Dame since Jimmy Clausen. And that's saying something. And I'm hearing people, again, that cover Irish football say that this is the best quarterback they have ever seen in their lifetime. Which is crazy, because this kid's a true sophomore. He's got 4 seasons of eligibility left, including this one. So he's not even close to being fully refinished. Not even close. As a matter of fact, I mean, if there's any knock that I have on him, it's that he floats balls a little bit too much, and which causes him to throw interceptions. He should have had one. There was one ball though, it was crazy. Brian Driscoll talked about it on Irish Breakdown. How I thought it was everyone watching the game. If you watched it live time, you thought this was a surefire pick six. It was kind of a quick out to Jordan Faison, and he throws it in the absolute perfect position with the absolute perfect velocity to where the guy his mouth was probably watering, thinking, oh, here's my pick six. I'm gonna go get. Oh, it went past my hands, and it was in perfect position. Faison catches it on the outside, turns around, and runs it up for a first down. And it's plays like that. It was a first down. It didn't score a touchdown or anything. There was nothing. At first glance, you're like, oh wow, what a play! And you're thinking that's going to be a pick six. But then when you think about it, you're going, that was unreal. That was an NFL style throw. And every once in a while, he'll have a throw here and there where you're like, oh my gosh, this kid's a true sophomore. But then it'll be countered by, I haven't seen a throw like that in maybe my life. Like, in a Notre Dame football uniform, I'm saying. I'm not making him the best quarterback of all time yet. But in a Notre Dame football uniform, we're just not used to seeing some of these throws. We saw a couple of them yesterday, and man, he's got elite arm talent. If he can stop with the floating balls every once in a while, and also kind of, just take the sack every once in a while, I can see why he threw the ball in that play, because if you take the sack, it's a change of possession anyway. But you're giving them an extra couple of yards if you do an intentional grounding. I don't know why he's got a problem with that, but he's had, I think, an intentional grounding in every single game. All 4 games with at least one. He had a couple against Miami. I don't know. It's weird. I'm not trying to be negative on him because it's hard to be negative when you have 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. And by the way, when was the last time as a team you saw Notre Dame pass for over 400 yards? It's off the top of my head, I can't remember the last time that happened. We've had a couple of times where we had a good rushing performance by our quarterbacks. A couple of three to 4 touchdown games, here and there. Ian Book, Riley Leonard had a couple 3 touchdown games. He had a couple 2 or 3 rushing touchdown games last year. But so we've seen that, but passing, it's been a long time since we've seen a passing performance like that. Even our backup, Kenny Minchie, got into the fray. He threw a dime, absolute dime, 37-yard it wasn't a touchdown pass, but a dime 37-yard pass. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful pass. So that kid can throw it too. So anyway, the whole performance was just all the way around. I mean, again, Jeremiah Love had 4 touchdowns, 2 receiving, 2 rushing. At the end of the first half, he had over 127 yards combined between rushing and receiving and 3 touchdowns. I mean, you look, that would have been an amazing game, let alone, and he didn't even play the 4th quarter. And I think they only had 1 possession offensively in the 3rd. It was just ridiculous, like the amount, how effective they were. They had 10 possessions and scored touchdowns on all but 2 of them, and one of those 2 was the end of the game when they needed out and time expired. And the other one was when they ran a poor play call when they went for it on 4th down. Other than that, they scored touchdowns on every single drive. They didn't score, they scored touchdowns on every single drive. That is extremely impressive. Even I dare you to go look. Even against weak opponents, when teams play, their FBS schedule, their schedule that mandatory FBS team, even their trash teams that they play, a lot of those teams, it's hard for a school to score a touchdown on every single drive, especially when those drives matter and you're going against the first team. I mean, it's rare. It's rare. We did that yesterday. That was incredibly impressive. Denbrock was just calling out. He was just calling up just great plays. I mean, how many times, again, as a fan, have you look back and you go, man, how does this team scheme wide open guys, and why can't we do that? And we did. He was just doing that yesterday. I mean, Arkansas's defense, which is really, really bad. I'll get to that in a second. They just had no idea what Denbrock was throwing at them. Just no idea. That screen pass to Jeremiah Love was just a thing of beauty. I mean, Carr rolls out perfectly to the right. It was just beautifully executed. And it's kind of a shame that we pulled that out against Arkansas because you want to see that play again, and we probably aren't going to be able to run it again for a while because now teams are gonna have film on that and watch it. So our special teams got dialed up on. Jordan Faison got a 47-yard pass to Malachi Smith. I mean, that was a great play. Again, another one of those things. Well, the only criticism I have is save that for when you're playing USC or something like that, or in a playoff game. I don't know. Maybe they'll call it again and dial it up again. But that was just a beautifully designed play. It all the way around, coaching, execution. We stayed healthy. It was just a great performance, and I truly hope we get to see more of that later on in the season. I think we will, because some of these teams, we're going to be favored in every single game the rest of the year. But the most critical, we've either already played or they're the next three coming up. Boise State, NC at home against Boise State, at NC State, and then at home against USC. Then a bye week. So, a very important couple of weeks coming up. Let me just talk real quick about Arkansas. That was a bad team, but we did what a good team is supposed to do to a bad team. You beat the crap out of them, and that's what we did. Arkansas is just in shambles. They're a team in shambles. I'm not saying that we did that to them. They have a head coach that clearly has lost control of his team. I highly doubt that he sees the next season as a head coach for Arkansas. He might even get fired sometime mid-season, depending on how their season goes. I have no idea. Which is weird. I mean, they had a pretty good upset last year. I think they beat somebody. They had an upset last year. I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was a LSU. I can't remember. But they just looked. That was awful. That was another. Yet last year we played one of the worst college football teams I've ever seen in Purdue. This year, that was one of the worst SEC performances I think I've ever seen. And I think ESPN showed a graph at some point. And that was the most points allowed by an SEC home team against a non-SEC opponent in 30 years, something like that, something crazy. So we out of all the bad SEC teams that have been out there, I mean, think about it. Vanderbilt's not great. They've been blown out a bunch of times, and we did something that no non-SEC football team has done to another home SEC football team in 30 years. So that's pretty impressive. But they're awful. They're terrible, absolutely terrible. They're talented. I mean, their offense can score points. That's for sure. They did it. This was their fifth game. It was Notre Dame's fourth. It was Arkansas's fifth game. In the previous 4 games, they were averaging over 40 points a game. That's not nothing. And one of those games was against Ole Miss, who, like I said, who just beat LSU. So it's not like they're not playing anybody good either. So they're scoring points, and we just shut them down. Again, how much of that is attributable to they just kind of quit on their head coach? I have no idea. But great win all around. I don't have much to complain about. I know the first 15 minutes of this podcast has been a lot of complaining, but I'm just gonna feel it until we win a national championship. And do I think it's gonna be this year? No, I don't. But at least we're still in position to compete. I want to stop thinking that way. I want to get to the point where we put it all together, and I can have that confidence week in and week out that we're at least going to make this a good game, a close game. If not, we're going to win it. And I think we made enough strides in the right direction, huge strides in the right direction, especially defensively, to kind of reassure me and a lot of other Irish fans that we're going to be in this. we're still right in the fray. We can't lose again, but we couldn't last year, and we pulled off 10 in a row. So we can still do it. We can still pull off 10 in a row, and hopefully we do. But with that, I'll record another podcast later on this week, talking about Boise State, what I see, and my prediction. Until then, go Irish. Love you guys, and we'll see you next time.